What's going on, everybody? McFarland here. Going to give you a rundown for, I believe it's the 18th, June 18th, Friday. Little weekend report for you. Those of you coming down here, fishing's pretty doggone good. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you saw that we absolutely hammered them yesterday. We train wrecked them. I had 31 pounds and some change for our best five, a 9-pound fish, 7-pound fish. It was good. It was really, really good. Today, it wasn't quite the train wreck. We caught them good. We only had 2 real big fish today, but lots of good fish. So let's tell you all about it. All right. First thing, the lake is just in really, really good shape now. Finally, it's just finally stable. And lake level as of 4 days, you can't even tell it's dropping, but it's 403.22, 403.21, 403.19, 403.18, and what that is they have to maintain what's called rate of flow downstream. So whatever those creeks, whatever's coming in at the top, or what should be rolling, and I don't know exactly what that is. I'm not in the water business, but it's very little. And in essence, the effects are gates closed. If you drive by it, you'll see one little pipe that's letting some water out. But a lot of this will increase here in a little bit, and you'll see it dropping faster. That is municipal source. Lake Fork is a municipal source. So for one side of the lake, there's over at SRA, there's a place where they pull water. On our side, there's a place where we pull water, the west side. And so you'll see about a ½ an inch a day pretty soon in municipal use and evaporation with as hot as it is. So, but for the time being, we've really stabilized. It's the first time in months, and immediately the fishing is so different. The only thing consistent this whole winter and spring was inconsistent. And it wasn't just here at Fork. It was a lot of the Midwest. It was not just Texas. But we're here now. Lake clarity, awesome. In the main lake today, I even smiled at my clients and I said, there it is. Lake Fork green. Man, it's just starting to look tasty. Looks like you want to swim in it. Doesn't have that funny clay color anymore. It's looking good. 1 to 2 foot visibility at least. The lake's alive. Water temperatures, man, what a crazy, just within 10 days, I mean, an 8, 9, 10, 11 degree swing. We had 93 for a surface temperature the other day. But you're in right now the 88 to 91, which is where we should be. And that's just the subsurface. The very first 18 inches. That cools down every day, warms back up during the day, cools down at night right now. But as that really kind of blends and warms this lake, and first of all, the shallow waters will get too hot and all the bait will leave. The brim will finish their spawn and all this will all come out now offshore. And it's going to make the offshore bite unbelievable this year. Probably going to push us all the way into August, which really hasn't done that much before. But we're going to see this bite be late, just like we saw the whole season be late. And we're going to be able to fish a little deeper into August this year. So plan on drinking lots of water and fishing in the heat this year, because that's when they're going to bite the best. All right, and that's just what we got. It's been really, really hot this week. The weather's been hot. The fishing's hot and going to get hotter. How am I catching them? All right. So the first thing is I'm throwing big worms, and I'm throwing big worms of 2 types. I'm throwing a simple power worm in a 10-inch or a 12-inch. Okay. 2 colors for me: the red shad and or blue fleck. Some of the biggest bass I know have been caught on blue fleck worm. Perfect summer color. You may have your own summer color. Choose that. Go with the confidence color. Okay. The other 2 worms are the Magnum trick worm. Okay. And or the Magnum speed worm. Okay. The Magnum trick worm has no tail. The speed worm has that traditional ultraviolet, or the ultra, what's it called, vibe speed tail. So it really has a lot of vibration action. Okay. So I'm fishing those worms, both power worms with this ribbon tail and the Zoom, 2 ways. Number 1, Texas rig. Okay. And number 2, the Santone football piglet shaky head in the 5/16 ounce. Now you ask why 2 ways? Well, number one, first of all, let me describe what I'm doing with the rod, reel, and everything else, and then I'll tell you why 2 ways. So this here is going to be my signature series MB 7'3", 1530 power. Okay, this is my heaviest rod that I make. It's a 6 power. The reason I want this big heavy rod is I want to be able to set the hook on these fish and rip them up out of those trees and get them to the surface and get them to us with more power than normal. If I let them go in the trees, you lose them. We let them go in the trees, we lose them. Okay, so that makes me think high-speed gear ratio. Heavy line, 20-pound minimum fluorocarbon line. High speed, at least a 7.3 gear ratio or an 8.1 gear ratio. Maybe some of them power winch, people like that power winch reel. Something with good power to get that fish up and out. All right, so that's the rod. You want to go to Louis and tell him you want McFarland's jig rod, McFarland's worm rod, the one he rips them big fish out of that deep water, out of them trees with. It's an MB 7'3", 1530. It's a 6 power rod. Okay, add the McFarland's signatures, you won't regret them. And I think they've kind of become the stock model anyways. But an awesome custom-made rod. You can put your name on it. You can do the colors. You can do a lot of things. But go see Louis for that. Let's stay with the fishing now. So that's the Texas rig. I'm going to use the exact same rod with a shaky head. All right. On the Texas rig, I'm going to peg the weight. I'm going to use a 5 or 6 odd hook, depending on what size worm. If I go to the 12-inch worm, it's a 6 odd. 10-inch worm, it's a 5 odd. The same now with this weight. There's going to be some variance in this weight. And what I tell you is really important about this weight is that I try and go as light as possible. The reason is I'm going to actually throw this Texas rig in the trees, not in the shell beds. Okay? In the trees, I'm throwing the Texas rig. It's weedless. It comes through the trees better than the shaky head. Get caught up a lot with the shaky head. Okay? So this is for the trees. Bottom line is I'm going to go as light as I can with this weight. But if you're not feeling it, if you're not connected to it, or it's high winds or different scenario, you may have to increase it. Always increase it to where you can feel it, because if you don't feel it, you're not going to really work that worm through the junk like you need to. We're throwing this into heavy, deep trees and climbing it through them and letting it fall down in them and climbing it through them. It's particularly challenging. When you learn how to do it, it can be done, and it can be done very well. And remember that fishing is an art. How good you get is truly up to you. All right, I'm deferring away a little bit, but I love what Rick Clunn says about fishing. He says 60% of fishing is location, location, location. That leaves 40% left. 15% of that 40% is gathered intelligence. The next 15% is your application and skill level, and only 10% remaining is luck. Thanks, Rick Clunn, one of the best fishermen we ever known. So, all right, you know the rod, you know the line, you know the reel. With the Texas rig, it's all about the trees. 15 to 18 feet of water right now seems to really be the key. They'll get much deeper later on. All right. When I go the second way, with a shaky head, it's in the shell beds. All right. Sometimes there's a little bit of wood in those shell areas. There are shell out there in the areas with trees. I don't usually fish the both together. I want a shell bed that's barren. I want nothing around it. I want that shell bed that I've found to be a kitchen. I want the fish to live somewhere near, quarter mile away in the trees, and they visit that shell bed with the right proper wind on the right day and the right timing. I'm going to beat them down, just like finding deer at a feeder. I'm going to beat them down with a sand tone piglet. All right? And this is what I put the Magnum trick worm on. Okay? All right, I tend to try and drag it uphill. I fish it just like a jig. It's a football shaky head, stand-up football shaky head. So I want to drag it uphill if possible. But any which way, I'm going to pull it like a jig, and when it starts to have contact with stuff, that's when I treat it like a shaky head. I don't shake the thing very much, but I'll pull it till it contacts stuff and then clunk that stuff. Don't try and pull that through brush piles that you're going to lose them. Go to the Texas rig. But if you're fishing a shell, and you're not wanting to throw a football jig, or they're not eating a football jig, they're eating the worm, try it on a sand tone piglet shaky head. All right, so now, and that's what that looks like, 5/16. I talked about pegging the weights too, by the way. In the Texas rig, you need to peg your weight. All right, otherwise everything can separate in the tree. So peg your weight. Little bobber stopper pegs that weight. I wanted to show you that. That's a shaky head. If you've never seen that, it goes on first. It's just a little bopper stopper. It's a bead that goes on first, and then it allows you to peg that weight down on that worm top, on that worm and that hook, okay? All right, so I had a lot I wanted to give you tonight. It's gonna be a good rundown for the weekend. This is kind of a similar rundown, how in depth I want to give you next year when I actually do the subscribe page, by the way. So we're gonna do the subscribe page starting 2022, the private subscription corner. This is the taste of how much more you'll get, all right? So not just longer, but more detail. Remember, fishing uphill with the sand tone, shaky head, fish the trees with the Texas rig. Now let's talk something special. Everybody knows to dip the tail chartreuse. Everybody, we've talked about it. We do it for a long time. Okay, I have this worm painted with a chartreuse pin, the tail. I want to show you why. For over 20 years, we've had UV reflection and not even know it. I'm pretty sure that this does show up on camera, but man, this blows my mind at what's happening. Now, this is a very magnified, this is a flashlight that emulates UV from the sun. This is very magnified, so your bait's not doing that underwater. But there's an essence of it. There is a hint of that flash. And the more UV, in fact, when you go outside and look at it in the sun, you'll see just a hint of it yourself. The fish see a lot more than we do. And this is why dipping your tail chartreuse is so important. It's why we've discovered it accidentally. It's why we get bit so much more when we do it. So here's a little McFarland's corner secret. Here's a little bit of the bonus corner, okay? This pen has chartreuse on one and orange on the other. Orange is a trigger color on Lake Fork. They love orange. So don't forget to do the orange. All right. I hope that you're seeing this like I am here. Sometimes things don't transfer over camera. But if you're seeing that orange flash and the chartreuse flash like I am, you can't be nothing but impressed. So let me know if that is popping out. That's really cool. And believe me, sometimes going to that orange, especially after I fished an area for a while, caught them a couple of days or whatever, and it's still the same worm in there with a different color. Smack upside the head. I just love it. I just love it. Man, thank you guys all for watching and sticking in there. And all you guys that run into me and give me knuckles and everything, I know you know how much it means to me. I even teared up in the parking lot the other day when a few of you said hi. It just, man, it's so surreal. So between just something simple as keeping track of the lake levels and sharing the blessing that I get to do every day. Anyways, one more rig I want to talk about. So that's how I'm catching them right now. I got away from the top water. The jig's in my hand, trust me. The Sandtone jig, you're going to hear about it real quick. I just can't seem to catch that bite on it. I get a few here and there. But I'm going to tell you the damage today was paying attention. It was being alert. And right now there's a lot of fish that are just showing up to these offshore plots and places, okay? They're suspending. So in essence, you probably, I don't want to say better off to crank them, but there's a great crankbait bite. You know, the C15s and the DD22s and the 10XDs are probably in the play right now for sure. I don't like to do them because they're expensive and you're going to lose a lot in fork. It's frustrating, but there's more than one way to skin this cat. Definitely more than one way to skin this cat. That's what makes it such a cool sport. So don't be afraid to go throw them cranks out there. You can crush them. And some guys like to power fish. They don't like to slow down fish. And what I'm going to talk to you about, some guys don't like at all. And that's the ball and chain. Okay. So today we were offshore throwing the worms, doing the things I talked about. And by the way, you want to throw those in the places right now where it has steep drop-offs, but next to shallow water. So that drop-off is at 8, 10 feet. And then you got 15, 30 right next door. Okay. That's where you need to be fishing. Now the trees are just submerged tall trees, but I saw on my sonar while we were fishing the worms, a big school of bass come through. They weren't white bass. I was certain of it. They were separated. They were big fish. And so I immediately audibled off the worms and went to, one of my personal favorites. And it's a mini Carolina rig. It's not a heavy Carolina rig. It's a mini one. It's like a finesse rig to me. I don't like to throw a drop shot, but this is perfect. And of course I went with the M-Pack shad. That means the letter M as in Mark. M-Pack is in Mark Pack shad. Chartreuse pepper today. Man, it was the answer. That's where our biggest fish came from today. It was so surreal to just that quick see those fish on the sonar, pop in my head. I need the mini Carolina rig, and all I need to do is get me one of these impact shads on there, and one or two, three different colors, and I know I've got these fish. I know I'm going to catch them. Once I saw them, I knew I was going to catch them, and that was today's best bite. So pay attention to those suspending fish, and basically this rig, I throw it on 20 pound monofilament because the ball and chain is really hard on your home line, on your main line. Okay, it's just hard on it. So use mono. You don't have to have fluorocarbon here. Don't use braid. It bites into the trees at Lake Fork. You get hung up more. Okay, but monofilament, 20 pound on the main line, 12 to 15 on the leader, and have a shorter leader. Okay, I'm going to use a 3/0 hook because the impact 5-inch bait's real small and I want it to fall real slow. I'm going to do the bead that we talked about for the Texas rig to stop the weight. So the bead first. We're going to do a 1/2 ounce egg sinker, an actual bead for making noise and protecting the knot, a barrel swivel, and that maybe two, usually I like to go 18 or shorter, but maybe 2 feet a leader, okay? Here's the last key and the last tip, and I'll let you guys go. You need to mentally think that this is not a Carolina rig. It is simply a jerk bait attached to a ball and chain. Throw it out, let it hit bottom. Lift and slide enough to check it. Then snap it like a jerk bait. Pause to let the bait fall. Lift, check, snap, pause. That's the sequence to do over and over and over. It's a jerk bait. Every time you pop, it goes like this. That's when they eat it. You're not going to feel that most of the time. They start to swim with it. When you lift a feel, you'll feel a heavy weight. You'll feel them swim. You'll feel like a wet sock's on there. You'll see your line moving, and that's when you hammer them. All right? So, guys, I feel like it's time to close this one up. I really hope it helps you this weekend. Remember to fish your strengths, whether you're still trying to find some fish on top waters, and there still are some fish. Frogs fish sometimes are still being caught on a daily basis. I'm seeing the pictures. There's a top water bite still a little bit. You can hit the right place and catch a big one. They're not all deep yet, but fish your strength. Fish what I'm doing if you like. I sure love sharing it with you. It's working for me, and I appreciate you watching. So I'm Mike McFarland, the Lake Fork Guide, giving you another rundown for Lake Fork, June 18th. Appreciate you watching.